Okay, so first of all, he has widened the scope of it. Now he's both saying nuclear and non-nuclear states, if they're working together, could potentially be a target for nuclear escalation. Now, in a minute, I'm going to show you the next portion of that where he's going to lay out the conditions under which he's going to launch that. But again, you cannot miss the context of this statement and the timing of its release. It is directly before the U.S. decides whether it's going to allow American, a nuclear power, to use, even if it's non-nuclear, long-range weapons by the Ukraine side, a non-nuclear state, into Russia. So if you have any doubts about what he meant by there, let me eliminate them for you. So he is very clearly saying that could, and he's not tying himself to anything. So that's part of this also that needs to be understood. He's saying this was what could happen. Now, let's take a look at the conditions under which, because this has also been expanded and lowered.
Такую возможность уже при получении достоверной информации о массированном старте средств воздушно-космического нападения и пересечении ими нашей государственной границы. Имею в виду самолеты стратегической или тактической авиации, крылатые ракеты, беспилотники, гиперзвуковые и другие летательные аппараты. Оставляем за собой право применить ядерное оружие в случае агрессии против России и Белоруссии как участника союзного государства, в том числе, если противник, используя обычное оружие, создает критическую угрозу нашему суверенитету.
So just to wrap that up there, he's saying that if he sees, and in other publications who've been analyzing this, say that if there are like a fleet of drones or large number of drones or even conventional aircraft, he said strategic or conventional aircraft. He said if missiles start coming, because as we've talked about, Professor Ted Postal from MIT has specified when talking about the nuclear identification system that the Russians have, which he identified as being not very strong and raising the prospect of Russia using them. He said, because they won't be able to know an incoming missile, whether it contains a conventional warhead or a nuclear warhead. And depending on, their mood at the time or what they think the strategic situation is, they could simply interpret as a nuclear weapon and take action because of that. But he also specified two other things that are very important in there. Number one, he broadened it out to specifically include Belarus. Now, I think that could be important for another reason, which I'll get to in just a minute. But the second issue that he mentioned there was that even conventional weapons, even if conventional weapons are used that could potentially put at risk the sovereign territory of Russia, that could also be a trigger for nuclear use. And listen, Russia considers all four of the oblasts that they have annexed in 2022, late 2022, to be Russian territory. Obviously, Crimea territory is the same. Even more so, obviously, the existing territory of Russia proper. And we also know from recent exposure from the director of the CIA, Burns, as well as from Jim Sciutto in a book that we highlighted earlier this year, that the Russians were apparently very close to using tactical nuclear weapons in 2022 because they had lost territory in the Kherson area, and that was even part of the stuff that they hadn't annexed, as well as in the Kharkiv area, also something they hadn't annexed. But because they suffered a conventional military setback, and it was no question about it, a loss for the Russian side, they were given serious consideration to the use. Now, you had Burns follow that admission up by saying, but we told them that if you did, that there was going to be severe consequences. And then they backed down, with trying to give the impression that now you don't need to worry about it. Well, Putin is now saying, no, you do need to worry about it here. Now, I mentioned that the inclusion